Kamala Harris has finally selected her VP. As most of you have already seen by now, she went with Tim Walz and not Josh Shapiro, which was a bit of a shocker. But I got to tell you, I think the media and how this stuff worked, they're pretty kind of slick because that negative article came out like hours or a day before she went elsewhere, which I thought was interesting. Before then, I didn't see much of the other stuff, at least based on where I was looking. You guys may have seen otherwise, but so yeah, so right after that, she went with Tim Waltz, who apparently they are describing as America's dad, is how they're calling him. This one came as a surprise to me. She was looking at him, well, Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly, and of course some other people that eventually dropped out, and it came down to these three. And apparently he got the win because he called Trump and MAGA weird. And they have a bit of he and Kamala have a bit of a chemistry, but you know he also checks a lot of boxes. He's a gun owner. He's a military vet. He's white. He's male, so he will probably be seen as the guy running the country, very much like Biden was when he was selected as Obama's running mate, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the guy, man. Tim Walz, very energetic, and he comes across as a bit of a shit talker from what I've seen. He had a pretty good joke about JD Vance and the couch that I saw, and people seem to like him. So what do y'all think?
I mean, what is it really to say? I mean, it's a pick, man. I mean, it's probably the most like milk toast mayonnaise pick that you can get. I don't really see it doing much for her, but I mean, I guess you can't pick Shapiro. I mean, I don't know. It's advantageous to do it because Shapiro represents Pennsylvania. This guy represents Minnesota. The other guy represents Illinois. These are supposed to be like three of the top, booming economies that people are projecting in the next like 10 years in the U.S. A lot of land to be bought in Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. It's probably a lot of deals that they can make. And I think she just chose him because it checks all those boxes that you're saying. Will it result in a win? I don't think so. But, I mean, the smartest pick she probably could have made for her VP.
Yeah, I feel like what Q said, he checks all the boxes. Average middle-aged white man from the military, like you said, Ken. I don't think that VP votes usually swing elections. It can take you down, but it can't really give you the push that you need to win. Historically, is what they're saying. But if you're talking about someone, like you said, he called them weird on the other side in this Kendrick Lamar energy, gun owner, he checks all the boxes of the person who may have been on the fence saying, "Oh yeah, I can vote for her there. She's got this good solid white guy in her corner." So I feel like that was the play that they made as far as going over anybody more popular than he was. So I don't think there was anything wrong with it, but I don't necessarily think it's the thing that's going to make her win either.
I think I might slightly disagree because I remember we talked about this either 1 or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember now, but I was saying that she needs a younger, good-looking white guy. So when all of the pictures of the white men went up, I was like, I don't even know who that fucking old dude is. She's not going to pick him. Which, side note, he's the same age as her, which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
He's not. He looks like he could be her uncle, but that's not nice. But it's true. I do think that this was a pretty good pick. Like this was as solid of a pick as she could have possibly made. The people that may have been a little bit wary of voting for her, I think she brought this guy in who you know, he has his problems just like any other politician. I mean, he's a politician. You know, of course, obviously his stance on Israel sucks, but what politician's stance doesn't suck on that? But he's fairly anti-war, supposedly is what he says at least, and he brings a lot of what Republicans may call socialist ideas. You know, he's about getting kids free food or, you know, free lunch and all that. So I do think that this was the type of pick that could win her votes with people that may have been a bit more wary of voting for her. I mean, I can't say I like or dislike him. I do think the couch joke was pretty funny. I think it's funny that he's being a bit petty the way Trump's team can be. And I think the fact that they're over there panicking says something. Like, they don't have anything for this guy. That's like they didn't have anything. Oh, go ahead, Spike.
I was just gonna say, I think that's the best thing about the pick is him being petty. Like he was the one that started calling him weird on the other side, and like you said, Mike, the couch stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of his talk, and yeah, he's a charismatic white dude. I think he's better than Shapiro. I found Shapiro to be a little bit boring, and whenever Shapiro would speak, it just seemed like he was reading off of a teleprompter. This guy does come off like a good old fashioned, I'm just a good old friendly white man. I'm your neighborhood white man. He comes off like that. You know, he's as far as pro LGBT as you could possibly expect from that type of candidate. You know, it was a smart pick for her.
It was definitely safe.
Sorry.
I was surprised by it. I thought Shapiro was the person until I read that article. And even after that, I was like, well, they could probably counter some of the stuff, but I think they just didn't want to have to deal with that. So the biggest thing that Republicans are trying to find to attack this guy is his veteran credentials, saying that he retired or quit before his team was deployed. The tampon Tim thing that's been floating online, which isn't quite working. And yeah, tampon Tim is. You saw that, right? Tampon Tim.
Rap group name, the tampon team. Shit.
That's because he wanted tampons in men's and women's bathrooms.
Why is that a problem? Who gives a fuck? Who gives what? Like, but you gotta think, if that's the best they could do with this guy, then I think he's a pretty good pick. He put.
I think the biggest thing.
All right.
The biggest thing was the military stuff that they said that he dipped out on his team before they went over there.
So that sounds.
But he was right. It didn't sound smart. But he was running for, I think, officer. He was doing something that took him away from going to fight in the war with them. Like, it wasn't just, I quit because y'all are going to war. He had another engagement.
I didn't think you could do that anyway. If you're in the military, can you just be like, I don't want to go to war, I quit. Break your
he had served long enough to be able to retire, so he just retired.
Right? Yeah. I mean, whatever.
I think the whole strategy here is to find the most inoffensive person, even though that they're all like disgusting at the end of the day. I mean, there's two ways for me to think about it. There's like how I see it, and then there's how like I think the average voter should see it. The majority of the country doesn't vote, and I think that voters should understand that they're in the minority. Voters, people who are routine voters, every 4 years you're going to be voting in a national election. That population of Americans are the minority in the country. Most people have been disaffected for decades, and most people don't see any response from the government, and they feel as though that the government isn't responsive to them. And I think that they would be correct in that assessment, just by looking at who politicians are committed to. What a country invests in is what a country is committed to. And I think Tim Walz has enough, quote unquote, inoffensive commitments or non-flagrant commitments. I mean, he's still pro-Ukraine war. He's still pro-Israel. Right. You know what I'm saying? He still has to be pushed by the large population of Somali and Black population there to give kids free lunch. That's not in his heart or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to from a political strategist standpoint, look at it like they were going to attack Shapiro for being a shill. They were going to attack him for his record with, I think, his friend allegedly murdered somebody, and then he covered it up or whatever. And there's something there that Trump could have done. The other guy from Illinois, he's a billionaire. So it's like you could basically attack Kamala on the fact that, like, you want to come after me saying that, you know, you're for the working class, but your VP is also in the 1%. This doesn't make any sense, like hypocrisy. And I think that Walz just gives a very, like, you know, leave it to Beaver energy to people. Everyone wants to feel, you know, that Kamala has a handler. A lot of white populist voters, they want to know that she has a handler, someone who will rein her in when she gets a little too much, you know, too black for the liking of that base. That's kind of what Joe Biden represented to some on the fence. You know, I'm fiscally conservative. You know, all that shit. That's what Joe Biden represented for the Obama votership. In my opinion, is do we have somebody who can put his hand on his shoulder and be like, hey, Barack, that's too radical, as if Barack was radical. But at the end of the day, I think that's the same calculus they're making here.
Yeah, and you know, look, people like him so far, it seems, and JD Vance is tanking. Like, this guy is not working at all. So to find a guy that's the opposite of Vance it seems to be working so far. So you know, we'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting. You know, as Doc sent us, they also attacking him for the riots, how he handled that. But there's also a message of Trump calling him and praising him for it. So it's just like, you know, what do you do? Go ahead.
Who's the they?
I thought that his net worth was. I thought his net worth was. My bad.
I even raised my hand.
Say,
you know, I even raised my hand, and Spike was just like, "Fuck that."
I just wanted to address the net worth thing. The net worth. I thought that they said that it was between 100 and 300,000, which was the poorest of any VP ever.
Yeah, it is. I'm talking about the
other guy.
Yeah, the guy the guy from Chicago, but he's actually from California, and he went to a private school in Maine or something. So it's like he's worth $1 billion. So I think she had to let him go. Couldn't take Shapiro because Shapiro's just too pro-Israel in this moment. And Walz is just kind of like, hey, you know, I'm just here to do
everyday
things.
Average American.
I'm here to do things, and everyone's like, all right, whatever that means, you know.
My bad, Mike.
The GOP critics, yeah, it was the GOP. That's an angle that they're trying to attack him on. You know, saying that you know, he let Minnesota burn, you know, while you know, he was governor or whatever he was doing there. So
yeah, I mean, these just sound like very desperate like strategies at this point. You know, it doesn't seem like they have much that they can attack this guy on. And that, I think, was probably the reason why they picked him. There's not much there that they can say. If all they got is the George Floyd shit and he didn't go to war, then I think he's a pretty fucking solid pick for Kamala's team.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I was lived up, I would be pretty fucking stoked. If I was completely lived up, I would be like, man, this is the best ticket I've ever seen in my life. I know they're excited. They're fucking jumping up and down, cheering. You know what I'm saying? They got white men for Kamala. I guarantee they're gonna have black men for Walz very soon. Or they probably already got it.
Twitter, they banned that white man for Kamala account.
No, really?
They brought it back, Spike.
They brought it back, but they banned it for a day.
That's hilarious.
That is hilarious. Why they ban it? Or
Some complaint. Some complaint from somebody.
A user complaint from someone that registered true, and then they investigated and then regained access the next day, but they did block them for a day as far as putting any tweets out. Elon is really, it seems like trying to use Twitter or X to what people said he bought it for. People said he bought it for to try to manipulate the election because he's definitely been on some weird shit.